Hello, everyone. Welcome to another quote-unquote dev vlog. I've kind of finished the alpha release and I haven't really done many dev vlogs, but in today's kind of video, I wanted to go over how I've used Templ as a templating engine with Go and for HTMX. So, we return HTMX back to the client from the server, and that's generated using Templ. It's pretty cool. You can get some types. It adds a few things on top of the regular like templating system. And I've done a few like slightly hacky things to, avoid needing to write like much JavaScript or needing to write JavaScript, which you probably don't need to do, but I just wanted to see how far I could go just writing Go. And then we'll also touch on how I've done like some basic localization as well in the application. So, you can pick between a couple of different languages and, if you pick Portuguese or German, you'll get a different output. So in Banter Bus, if we take a look at kind of the project structure, I'm not like fully happy with the structure, so it might change, but in views, basically, this is all the kind of logic of what we're going to show the client or, the person that visits our website. So I've got a layout, which is just based on Templ. As I said, it gets built into these .go. But when we develop, we're just going to look at the base .templ file, which we're already in. So, so there's just like, your kind of layout file, and, this sets up everything and adds our various static files, fave icons and all this other stuff. I think some of this, like if you use progressive web apps, our styles, which are generated from our Tailwind config as well. I've set up my LSPs and various things so I can do like, BG, and then you start to get auto completions for the various different colors you have, the Tailwind styles you can use. So and it will sort the Tailwind styles as well. You can see at the bottom here the various we've got HTMX, HTML, Templ, Tailwind CSS, all these LSPs we're using, and it looks like I couldn't quite attach to Navic, but that's fine. Then, we've got a few like reusable components. So the toast component is used in a few places. And because we're using the Templ LSP, I can do my key binding, and we can go over and take a look at what this looks like. And so this is just a toast, the toast that kind of appears at the bottom to let the user know they've done an action. We've got headers here, and we pass in a bunch of languages, and then this is the children bit is actually what gets filled in. So all of my pages look like this, or have this base layout, and then we just change kind of what's inside this page bit, which we do using HTMX, and then we import a bunch of like JavaScript files at the bottom. I need WebSockets. We've got the HTMX WebSockets, a little bit of Alpine, Sentry for monitoring, to show a toast on failure and success, etc., etc. And then we do some switching stuff here, depending on if it's prod or not, for plausible analytics, which is like a privacy focus. Like I'm self-hosting this for some analytics for my site. But, we can do stuff like this. We can do if else. So that's kind of nice. And then we can use these scripts to generate these script tags when we want to, if we wanted to do something dynamic, like I want to pass in an environment here. So in kind of like Go code, but then this is all like JavaScript. And then we can look up here and we can see like using that, and that will get loaded as a script on our page, as will like this as well. So this is all scripts, and put this at the bottom. So that's kind of like the base layout. And then if we kind of go out, I've got different pages. So I've got two main pages, the index page, which fills in from that kind of children bit. We've got some components here. Some people might not like the look of this, and it can get a bit ugly, but I'm trying to, create these. Maybe there's a better way. Let me know in the comments, but I'm creating these reusable text inputs because they get used quite a bit, and we pass it like a label name, and this is related to the localization we're talking about. The language we want to use gets passed in the context. This I18N library we're using here, context I18, so we're passing which I18N is basically internationalization. You have like 18 characters, like for Kubernetes you have K8s, right? So just because we want to avoid having to write that out. So yeah, it pulls in from our context, which will get passed when we build this template. And then we'll take a look at where this comes from. But yeah, we have like sections. And so depending on the language, it will look for home, nickname, label, because obviously the label and the placeholder will change depending on what language we use. And same here. Unfortunately, it does make the code a little bit harder, or the templating a little bit harder to follow, because we've got this kind of stuff here. We don't exactly know where it's going to output. But yeah, so that's kind of that. We've got pages, and then we've got sections of pages. As you can see, we kind of extend this base template we have here when we create the index page, and then the join page is very similar. This is where users can come to join a game, and it just provides a few conveniences, like fills in the room code from a URL parameter and stuff like that. And then again, I've just laid out stuff. I've got icons here, just SVG icons, just to hide that way. I've got a bunch of reusable components like buttons. Again, it's not necessarily the best for reusability, especially if you're front-end developer. Like, you might think this is a bit cumbersome, and to be fair, I do understand. But again, as a back-end developer who, when working on side projects, I feel like whenever I needed to do front-end, it kind of slowed me down. I found this a lot easier for me to work with. But again, yeah. Then I've got this locales Go file, which basically grabs all the languages we have, goes through this lang folder, which I'll show you in a second. Essentially, we just grab all the languages we have, and we return them. We return just so we can show the user the various languages we have, and I can show you what that looks like over here. So this is why we do it. Someone did point out to me that, we've got German and Portuguese not in Portuguese. Like, what's the Portuguese word for it? So probably need to fix that. But hopefully, if I did like Portuguese, you can now see this. I've left Banter Bus as it is, but you can see the rest of this has hopefully to some German, and then same with German, and then we can go back to English. So yeah, that's kind of what that bit is doing. We're just fetching all the languages that we need. And then we're using these Go embed, so we can embed the languages in the binary itself, these language files. And if we take a look, we have one for each of the languages, and we've got EN as in English, and then Great Britain, or the UK, where I'm from. So we've got British English here. We've got German, and Portuguese. Whereas you could obviously have Portuguese, Brazil as well, right? Slightly different. And obviously you could have American English. And if we take a look, this is where we saw like home, nickname, label, and this is where this is coming from. So I've tried to break it down per page. As you can see, the emojis are not quite loading here. But anyways, that's a different problem for my terminal that I'm using. And you can also see, actually, it's kind of broken here, which I need to take a look at and fix these. I think it's working in Ghosty. I haven't played around with Ghosty. For those of you who've been using that, maybe I should move over. But yeah, anyway, so that's kind of where this comes from. And then if we look at the Portuguese one, we've got hopefully Portuguese that makes sense. And I've tried to break it up by kind of section and page where it makes sense. And yeah, so that's kind of where the different languages are coming from. And we're loading them all in, and we'll see where we set that up in a second. But yeah, this list languages is just for what we display on the header there. So that's kind of roughly the Templ bit. So again, because we're using the Templ LSP, I can do like space gr and find the reference, and we can see I've got a handler function here. Again, we get the languages which get passed to the index. And if we take a look, we get languages. Ooh. Oh, interesting. When you do GD there, it takes you to the Go version. Anyways, so this is what you can see what the Go code looks like, and you can see why we're not really editing it. But yeah, if we take a look at the index, we can see we accept languages. We need 2 arguments, languages and environment. Which then get passed to the base layout, because that's basically what we need. We need to know what languages to show in the header and what environment for plausible and also for Sentry, right? So we can do that. But yeah. So as we can see, we do Templ handler, and we just kind of return this and serve this HTTP. So when we go to the index page, when we go to the website, this is the page that's served by default, and then same for join. Then there's obviously for the WebSocket interactions, like if a player joins a room. So if we go to like lobby.templ, I didn't get super clever with the HTML. Like obviously if a player joins the room, I could just send the new HTML of just the player joining the room, but I just send the entire lobby again. Probably I could optimize that if that becomes a problem. But you can see here with the HTMX, we're going to swap the inner HTML when we find the ID page. And if I show you on the layout base, so this is the page bit, right? So basically everything inside here, the children bit, is being replaced when HTMX receives this, and obviously this is going to get rendered. And you can see for each player, do this. If the current player is not the host, and blah, blah, blah. So if they're the host, we might want to put a crown on them, or give them the ability to kick players. If the player is the host, we want to put crown on their name, above their name, so people know they're the host, etc., etc. We want to allow people to edit their nicknames, and a whole bunch of stuff. It's kind of what you expect. Maybe it can get simplified. For the WebSocket bit, something to note. Again, there might be a better way. I'm using HX vowels, so we're passing the message type, so the backend knows what kind of message and how to handle it. So this is to start the game. So we'll call a handler, and I've got some logic, and I'll probably go over that at some point. And then basically any input is also passed, and this one's hidden. So we're passing the room code. It's hidden from the player, so they can't see it, but we want to pass the room code. So this was the easiest way I figured out how to do it with HTMX. Again, not super elegant. I could probably edit this and then just return the room code inside this rather than having an input, but this works mostly pretty well. And that's basically it. And then again, this is, to copy stuff to the clipboard. I wanted to avoid having to write JavaScript, so I ended up doing this, which is also not ideal because, you can't use an LSP to check if this is valid JavaScript. You have to go manually test this, or write some end-to-end tests with like Playwright to validate that they work. So not great, but it kind of works. So if we take a look at this and we see where this is called, there's 2 bits, some reconnect logic, but I've got like a package called view updates, which will update the view for the player using their WebSocket connection. So we can see here we've got sections lobby. We render the lobby. We give it as bytes. We turn it into some bytes over here. Byte slice. Then for every player in the lobby, we're going to send them this new version of the lobby, as in a player joins. We're going to use this WebSocket publish, which is using Redis just so the application can scale horizontally. So rather than storing just a WebSocket connections in just like the server, that would mean like if you accidentally connected or disconnected and had to reconnect to another server, this is running in a Kubernetes cluster. And obviously you can have multiple replicas. So that's basically what that's doing. That's publishing that. And then this HTML is returned to the client. And HTMX then handles updating. So if we kind of take a look at what that might look like. So if we said, proceed, and we want to start the game, we can see here. And then I will create on the side an incognito window, copy that, and then also join other player. If we give it a nickname of other player and join, you can see now we've got both. And then if I ready up and the other person readies up, you can see we got start game, and that was all coming from kind of WebSockets. And this is the lobby updating, and you can see if the other player unreadies. Again, I'm not a UI designer, so I'm sure there's lots of areas I can improve in the application. It's just kind of the alpha release at the moment, just to get some feedback. And you can update. You can see there's a little crown. You can update your avatar as well if you want. So yeah, that's kind of roughly how we've got it working. I'll quickly show you how the context is set up. So the way I'm basically setting the context is I've got some middleware. When a user goes to a different locale, or changes the language, it gets passed as another parameter in the path parameter. And that basically means we strip that out if it's in the path, and we use that as the language. There might well be some bugs from doing that, but that was the best I could do. So we get that out. Essentially, this does, for the WebSocket bit, it does kind of count as a refresh. So you disconnect and reconnect. So again, you think about load on the server, handling reconnections. You need to create another TCP socket. Another TCP connection again there. When you upgrade the connection to a WebSocket connection. So there's probably some overhead. But yeah, essentially what we do is we try and pull this locale from either the header, if there's an accept language header, or from the path segment. Probably, again, we can tidy this up, need to have a think about how I want to handle this. I just wanted to kind of get something working. Then we use this, again, library that I showed you before. We set the locale, so this kind of becomes the default locale. And we set it in this cookie, and that gets passed. And the main reason is because this is a WebSocket connection, we can't just, if this was a normal HTTP, we could pass the context along. But because this is a WebSocket connection, the context is not going to be from the context of that request. It's recommended not to use that because obviously it makes sense when you're just doing a HTTP request, it's kind of short-lived, it ends. But yeah, so we now have a context for kind of each WebSocket message we receive, and we can pull some information from the locale cookie. Again, I set it for an hour at the moment, but maybe we could, not expire it and just change it when a user comes. And so that's kind of how the locale gets set inside the context, and we can pull that from said context. And so here it is. Here's the kind of when a connection is actually made. We can see we try and pull the locale where we can, and we have like a default locale, and we try and pull it from the cookie. If not, we go to a default locale of English. Again, I haven't thoroughly tested this, so there could be some issues. And then at some point down here, we upgrade the connection to we upgrade the connection to a WebSocket connection. And essentially, every time you change the language, you're basically disconnecting and reconnecting. And so we have this like subscribe function here, which basically handles that. It's not ideal again, but using with WebSockets, it does make it a bit trickier. And it's something I probably need to have a think of, but I just wanted to, it was more of a, can I add localization to my app? And that was one way I found. And again, like with lots of stuff, we can kind of tweak as we go. So hopefully that kind of made a little bit of sense. Again, kind of alongside these kind of dev vlogs, what I can do is maybe we can build an application from scratch where we can apply some of this stuff, like setting up CI, showing you how CI is working, setting up Templ, like a basic example, showing you how that's working, rather than showing you a working version and kind of reverse engineering, which I appreciate is not always the easiest. Let me know if you're kind of interested in that. Probably, again, going to be another like 20-minute odd video, but hopefully you can kind of see what I've done, help me improve it, or take some bits for yourself that makes sense. But yeah, Templ's pretty cool. The localization wasn't that hard to do, and I'm having fun creating applications with it. Much easier for me than in the past, where I've had to, I found again losing motivation when I've had to write front end code. But again, that's a me problem. I'm sure there's lots of people who don't have that problem. But yeah, cool. Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully that made some sense. Let me know your thoughts, and yeah.